Welcome to World War Live. I'm your host, Conrad Franz, joined by nobody. It is just me. Let me know in the live chat if you can hear me. Let me know how you're doing. I want to wish everybody a happy feast of the Annunciation of the Theotokos. I want to wish all Greeks a happy Greek Independence Day. I want to wish everyone a happy Tuesday evening, which is when all of this is going to be happening from here on out every Tuesday evening between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to be going live here on the World War Now YouTube channel, on the World War Now X account, and hopefully in the near future on the World War Now Substack, which if you don't know already, obviously you can support us, get behind the paywall, listen to all the shows at worldwarnow.co, worldwarnow.substack.com. So again, if you're somehow on this stream and aren't aware of that, be sure to head over there. And if you're normally a Substack or other platform listener, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the X account, which is World War Now _. And I want to thank everybody for joining in. We're at about 100 live, which was what I was hoping to get. I wanted at least 85 or so live viewers for this to kick this off. So I really want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know I'm competing every evening. I'm competing with some live stream. I couldn't do Wednesday because then I'm competing with Vince and Cameron and Rebecca on the Backlash. Right now I'm competing with Father Peter and Orthodox Ethos. So I'm probably missing out on a potential larger audience on Mondays. There's always stuff going on. We record Ether Hour on Mondays, so I don't want to be too booked out. We record World War Now on Fridays, and Thursday was another option, but then there's a lot of shows. War Strike does Thursday, so a lot of shows. But here we are, World War Live. There's a small chance Dimitri could be joining me later in the show for World War Live. He's going to sort of be this ephemeral, disembodied voice who will be sometimes tuning in. Maybe he's like the Jarvis. I'm going to be like, Dimitri, pull up this, that, or the other, and he'll be sort of my Jarvis character. But I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat. Want to thank everybody for coming on in. I'm already see some super chats coming in. So if you want to support the show, please leave a super chat. $2 even. I'll answer your question. I will read your comment and we'll address it. Obviously, you can also get behind the paywall and ask us questions in on the Substack and the Q&A threads that we have there. Someone's asking me, what do you mean by Happy Annunciation Day? Well, today is the Feast of the Annunciation of the Theotokos for those celebrating, on the new calendar. And obviously, I know it's the same for even the Westoids that might be in the chat, you Roman Catholics and High Church Protestants. But today we celebrate the Theotokos' conception of Christ when the Archangel Gabriel came and revealed to her that she would be, or rather, asked for her consent, as it were, to conceive the Christ child and to incarnate our God. And I hope everybody's having a wonderful Lent, of course. I hope they are staying strong with the fast. I know I'm doing my best and having a hard time. I would love some meat, but we do what we can. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Obviously, all non-Orthodox people, this is World War Live. People that don't know, this is the live show version of World War Now. You're seeing WWN. I know that people are going to want to buy some of this, and I know I don't have a merch store available yet. So let me know in the comments and in the live chat how much you want some of these, because I would love to start selling these hats, selling this sweater, and all sorts of other things. We have other colors and models. My personal favorite being the tactical, kind of army tan looking World War Now red classic. We also have this blue one. So here we go. What's what we're doing? If we get any mods in the chat, can we just ban this Aaron S character? That would be great. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We're gonna be covering some good stuff. Obviously, maybe the format of this show, maybe first 20-30 minutes, I'll probably do a monologue a little bit, talk about the state of the Third World War. Maybe obviously some specific stories that have come up since the previous episode, which we like to release on Sundays, and then Friday when we record the next episode. So this will be a good sort of midweek update. So this is the run from this Fed clown. Okay, Bros, you're in the comments, bro. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining in. It's going to be a very good show. So I was thinking, though, even though we have some things to talk about, I wanted to talk about some of the things in the news. Obviously, with the updates in Ukraine, we've got the live UA map pulled up here. We're going to be talking about the Belgorod incursion, going to be talking about the situation in Kursk, going to be talking about what's going on in Turkey. But before we kind of pontificated on some of these specific details, be sure to listen up to our latest episode. It's one of my favorite episodes we've done recently. I think I was low-key spitting. So be sure to check that out, World War Now, episode 112. But I think a good thing for this live stream, and it's been so long since I've kind of gotten back to the basics. For those that don't know, right before I started World War Now, I wrote a thread on X back in July of 2022, so almost 3 years ago now, where I sort of outlined my perspective on what I considered the ongoing Third World War, which of course is based on Metropolitan Neophytos. I know I see people in the comments talking about if they got their Metropolitan Neophytos book yet. Here's my Metropolitan Neophytos book, obviously from Uncut Mountain Press, which is without being crucified, we will not be resurrected. We will not be glorified. I don't know if it's reverse on the camera or not, but I've been diving into it. It's some incredible stuff, guys. I mean, I know people love Metropolitan Neophytos here, but I am already, how far am I into this? I am about 140 pages in, and it's really good. I wish I could read faster. I wish I had more time to read. I'm trying to crank through at least a dozen books this year, as opposed to last year when I read like 2 books in total on top of, all the articles and other things. So really hoping that I can keep cranking out the books. I've got some books to read for you guys for Ether Hour episodes in the future as well. I don't know how many mods are in the chat. It doesn't seem like we're having any issues, but hopefully some people can tune in. Maybe I got to assign some wrenches to some people if things get a little too crazy. But I wanted to kind of return, to the roots of these things, because I know people are tuning into the show all the time and they're like, why is it World War III? Why are you talking about Turkey? Who is St. Paisios? These sorts of things. And I know not everybody is tapped into the lore. So I was going to bring up my original World War Now thread, and we were going to go through that, maybe see how prescient I have been in the past few years of analysis. And I was looking through it, and I'll be honest, maybe I should have looked a little bit before I went live, maybe a few days before, because I hadn't looked at it in a long time. But I got to say that I'm vindicated. I'm very vindicated. So we are going to, hold on, we are going to be looking at some of this. Here we go. So here we're on X. Tell me which looks better. Does this look okay? Or does this look better? No, you want to be able to read it. So there we go. Hope everyone can read this. I'll be reading it aloud as well. But this is July 1st, 2022. You can see me, Nomrad. My account at this point wasn't even that old for those that have followed me for a long time. I used to be on X at Conrad K. Franz, like my full name. And then in the aftermath of January 6th, I got suspended for literally no reason. They said spam or some other nonsense. So, I think this account, I called it Nomrad. I really thought it was going to be another burner that would just eventually get banned. But we're still here years later, thanks to Elon Musk buying X. So let's go through this. So this says, World War III has already begun. They simply are not calling it such yet. A thread on the flashpoints around the world that clearly define these early stages of a worldwide conflict. Yeah, I'm really autistic. I don't use the globe emoji. You can maybe guess why. But of course, this from Metropolitan Neophytos is what really kind of started it all. This is a homily that he gave in his metropolis. It says, we are living in the 2.5 year of the Third World War, but they simply are not saying this to us. Many times these unseen authorities are even more powerful. He's talking about, what we talk about on the show, maybe them boys, maybe, the Freemasons, the global machinations that orchestrate things, pull strings for a grander narrative, as opposed to the on the ground stories that people are told that get soldiers mobilized and all these sorts of things. So, and he says, so that none will say that the bishop is speaking about prophecies for years, but has not told us about these things. I'm telling you, prepare. And of course, that's what we've been saying on the show for a very long time. That is, prepare for what is to come, most importantly, in spirit, in repentance. So that's the first thread. Then we get right into the analysis. And I say the obvious epicenter at this stage of the conflict is Ukraine and the Donbass region. Russia is slowly but surely securing significant portions of Ukrainian territory as Ukraine uses its soldiers as cannon fodder with a supply of unlimited weapons from the West. This was a long time ago. I believe this was before even a lot of major offensives on both sides. So this was, again, still the first year of the special military operation. I showed a lot of maps. I would show a lot of, this is some prophecies. This is, again, Father Elpidios Vaginakis. I know I haven't talked about him all the time because he says some dubious things sometimes, but this interview he did with Stefanos Damianidis on Focus FM was pretty good. He said Ukrainians themselves will welcome the arrival of Russia. Russia's apparent attack, if Russia hits Ukraine, is as if it is hitting itself, so it will not happen as we believe it will. Ukrainians got brainwashed pretty hard with the propaganda stuff. However, those in the current oblast, as well as I think a lot of people in Sumy, Chernigov, Kharkov, I think this could be viewed as accurate. And this is, something in the Luhansk region, which again has been mostly liberated since for the past while. So let's move on. I say it isn't just Russia who is possibly getting in on the pie cutting of Ukraine. Hungary, Poland, and perhaps even Slovakia have claims in the east of the country. As the largest war in Europe since World War II is fought, the nations of the world have been forced to pick sides. And of course, everyone's seen this map showing what Poland, what Slovakia, Hungary, even Romania, Moldova could potentially do if, Russia and America, as we're witnessing now, start, perhaps dictating a sort of breaking up of this state. And think about the rulers of these countries right now. Of course, Poland did fall to Donald Tusk, so it's looking like more globalist than ever. But between Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, we've seen populism rising. Of course, Slovakia, we have Fico in power who survived his pro-Ukrainian assassination attempt. Obviously, Orban holding it down in Hungary, and he's openly talking about autonomy for Transcarpathia, allowing the Transcarpathian Hungarians to, of course, have some form of autonomy, much like, the Gaugas here in Moldova do. And then, of course, Romania, Georgescu almost made it in there. Of course, they prevented that from happening, but it appears that maybe it's going to be George Simeon or somebody else, that Romania will be tipping towards the more neutral, as they call it, pro-Russian right side of the spectrum, joining Fico and Orban. Of course, in Poland, the problem is even the center right, the Law and Justice Party, they're just as anti-Russian as Donald Tusk is. In Confederacia, Grzegorz Braun, our fire extinguisher wielding, menorah extinguishing hero, he's just not as popular as some of these other, quote unquote far right leaders are, because in Poland the disdain for Russia is so high. But of course, for those that don't know, this is the language situation in Ukraine, showing that, again, everything up to the Dnieper and the entire coast of Ukraine is fundamentally Russian. And then even in this area here in the center, this area, I'm sure, is where, again, most of the Russian speakers are. And then you get over to Lvov, where, again, this was heavily occupied by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And now we have, this whole Ukrainianization. These people might as well be Polish at a certain level. And I'm not trying to needlessly stoke controversy, but this is, of course, the root of the conflict in Ukraine. So moving on through my thread, the economic battle, not just against Russia, is one of the major globalizing factors of this war. To follow Russia-Ukraine more closely, follow Baron of the Taiga. Baron of the Taiga, if you're watching this, come back. Please, Baron of the Taiga, save us. If you can hear us, Baron of the Taiga. Those that don't know, I actually asked Baron of the Taiga. He was a potential co-host of World War Now before Dmitry and I connected. And not to say that it wouldn't have been great with him, but I am glad that he has his own endeavors, and Dmitry and I, of course, have hit the ground running with World War Now, and it has become more successful, frankly, than I ever could have imagined. So thank you all for supporting. But yeah, I always have, I'm giving citations, giving just examples that, the world is sort of was coalescing at the time around picking sides, Russia, Ukraine, some trying to feign neutrality. As economic powerhouses like India and China refuse to help isolate Russia, other formerly neutral states like Sweden and Finland have been recruited into NATO, which now openly calls Russia a direct threat. This comes with the recent rejection of neutrality by Turkey, and this is going to come into play later. So check the date, of course, July 1st, 2022. I'm talking about the rejection of Turkish neutrality. I'm talking about Sweden and Finland and NATO. I'm talking about India and China. How did I do? How are we doing these days? How prescient was I? I think it's pretty good. And by the way, please send as many super chats as you want. When I'm done with the rant, with the analysis, I will get into your questions. I've got some content to react to as well, so it's going to be a wonderful show. Don't turn away. So be sure to, I want to answer all your questions, so send as many super chats as you want. I'm not forgetting them, but we're going to move on here. Obviously, here's some evidence. Finnish President Niisisto says Turkey has agreed to back Swedish and Turkish NATO membership. So in the context of the protests going on in Turkey right now, and Turkey, angling to get into the European Union, potentially take part in a, expanded European army or European security force, this is very relevant. So Turkey, who now supports Sweden and Finland joining NATO, and thus would support them along the rest of the bloc against Russia. Turkey is support for its growing and approaching military incursions into Syria, which Russian officials have said they will openly resist. And again, 2022, and now here we are. Syria has collapsed. Turkey and Israel, some say with the blessing of the Russian Federation, oversaw the fall of the Assad regime. And now Turkey is occupying thousands of square kilometers in northern Syria. They're at war with the Kurdish-backed SDF. And we're hearing rumors that even Israel is sort of asking Russia to expand its presence to maintain its military bases in the Latakia region, the Khmeimim Air Base, others that the Russians still have. And it seems Israel is even willing to allow Russia to expand its presence if it would counter the Turkish presence there. We're hearing about, Turkish alliances to counter Israel in the region. Again, I still maintain that Turkey is a crypto ally of Israel. We are almost at 200. We're over 200 viewers. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is really good. I was really hoping to stay above 100, but this is wonderful. But again, some relevant throwbacks here. I don't even remember all of these. It says President Erdogan to reporters on flight back from NATO summit, we will follow balanced policy with maintain relations with both Russia and Ukraine. Leaders in NATO summit floated the mediation approach between Turkey and Greece and said, we don't have time for that now, which, the Greek-Turkey situation, no matter how close they are with NATO and the EU and these things, or Russia, Orthodoxy versus Islam, it's just always going to be Greece versus Turkey in their hearts when it comes to military conflict. Moving on, Syria has been a site for proxy conflicts between Russia and Turkey, as well as Iran versus USA, as well as Israel versus Iran. Russia and Iran, as well as China, support Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Russia even recognizes the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights as Syrian, something putting them at odds with Israel. So obviously we know that Russia isn't necessarily an enemy of Israel, but being an ally of Assad, being an ally of other quote-unquote Iran, obviously they come to a head with Israel in a lot of places, especially in the Middle East. I actually wanted to read this too. He says, but I see a great disaster in many countries. I regret that Scandinavia will be destroyed because it will be persuaded by the Americans to take a stand against Russia. And again, not taking Father Elpidios' words for it there, but I included that, and I include it now because when I went to Cyprus and talked to Metropolitan Neophytos, he of course reiterated there are prophecies talking about how if the conflict starts from the north, it will be much more devastating than if it starts from the south. And the south, of course, I think meaning perhaps the Middle East, perhaps North Africa, perhaps even something in the Eastern Mediterranean, even on the Greek islands themselves, whereas the north, obviously, it can't get much farther north than Scandinavia. And Metropolitan Neophytos did say that, if Scandinavia is hit, there will be heavy weaponry dropped on them. Russia, they share a border with all of the Scandinavian countries. So if it, comes to the point where, the Middle East isn't perhaps the war that kicks all of this off, and Russia, Ukraine, Europe, NATO versus the Russian Federation is what really gets us all going here, then I think, according to Metropolitan Neophytos and others, it's going to be much more devastating. So keep that in mind. We're going to move on here. Turkey and Russia are two of the most important players in this boiling conflict. They clash through proxies in war-torn Libya, and Russia is currently keeping peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia, where Turkey openly supported annexing parts of historic Christian Armenia. So the Azerbaijan-Armenia thing obviously was flaring up at this time. I believe this was actually right before or right after the Azeri-Armenian War sort of wrapped up. But obviously now Armenia, no more Russian peacekeepers there, no more Azerbaijan somehow is, again, I've always applauded the diplomatic abilities of the Azeris. Maybe it's their hybrid Muslim-Jewish thing they have going on with, Ilham Aliyev. Some say he is of a mountain Jewish extraction, which wouldn't surprise me at all. But the Azeris, despite openly signing deals with Israel, their state oil company is going to be drilling and searching for stuff off the coast of Gaza. Russia still basically allowed them to do whatever they want against the Armenians. And of course, that all occurred under the oversight of Pashinyan, who is one of the biggest mindless leaders I think we've covered on World War now. But he, of course, oversaw the dismantling of, the sort of greater Armenian world that existed outside of the current UN-recognized borders. So, that's how that goes. Moving on, regarding Africa, Russia has supported multiple coups and governments opposed to French influence in former West Africa. Mali is currently experiencing fighting as a pro-Russian junta remains in power. And the recent coup in Burkina Faso has their junta leaning towards Russia. And this is that clip that Jackson Hinkle stole from me after I posted it, of all these Burkinans in Burkina Faso holding up these Russian flags. Obviously, I'm sure Wagner or someone gave them these, but they were happy to kick out the French. Again, we hear stories now of Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso, securing gold mines for the state, keeping the gold within Burkina Faso, which, again, not trying to third world post here, but you're getting into Gaddafi territory there, man. You don't want to get too close to the sun. However, these, truly Bantu African countries without, sea borders, they're not quite as able to confront Israel or, have an influence on the migration situation. So that is very much what is going on there. But we're going to move on. If we return to Central Asia / the Middle East, Pakistan saw its strongman Prime Minister Imran Khan driven out in a sudden coup likely influenced by Western powers. Pakistan and India both rejecting strong sanctions on Russia was simply unacceptable to the US / Atlantic bloc. People forget this, that obviously in the midst of Imran Khan being sort of forced out in this huge, almost civil war that occurred in Pakistan with, just the sheer amount of supporters that he had able to kind of shield him from the centralized state authorities. Even the pro-Western authorities that were propped up over him, they were still dramatically influenced to side with their former vassals, their former imperial overlords, and ultimately turned against Russia. Obviously, India has maintained its imports of Russian gas and has been a major lifeline for Russia. But obviously, I think India and Pakistan being the two newest, smallest, nuclear states, obviously, well, the real one is Israel, but that's unofficial. We don't know about Israel's obvious nuclear capability. But with India and Pakistan, that's a question that, they supposedly have these bombs and we're going to have to deal with them. And they have, millions and billions of people. So, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of questions, people asking about drama and whatnot. But, if I read all the super chats, I'll read some regular comments as well. But I'm going to get through this thread, talk about a few other things, and then I will engage more with you wonderful people in chat, the World War Now patriots, as I like to call them. The return to the immediate periphery of Russia-Ukraine, we see how Lithuania is moving forward, even against the wishes of major EU players, with its blockade interference with shipments to the Kaliningrad Oblast, directly going against multiple international treaties. Ultimately, the Lithuanians got kind of reined in on that. But that being said, as these negotiations move forward, I've said this on the show, I wouldn't be surprised if Kaliningrad becomes a topic of discussion once again. Romania and Moldova are also in the direct periphery as Russia seems likely to connect to its bases in Transnistria, a breakaway region of Moldova. I have a whole article about this here. That link no longer works. I no longer work for Turley Talks. The Turley Talks website barely even publishes articles anymore. So sorry, but I got this made by the Turley Talks thumbnail creator. I thought this was a well done thumbnail showing what's going on. And of course, it talks about Georgia at the time, who was also being very strongly pressured to turn into that, to become sort of the next Ukraine. Going to read more from this interview. If you do not maintain neutrality, I told the Romanians, if you do not remain neutral, you will be destroyed. Unfortunately, this neutrality will not be maintained by all states. I will not name the states that will be destroyed. I love that. I will not name, let everyone show, this is some Greekism right here. I will not name the states that will be destroyed. You're never going to guess what he does in this next frame. I'm sorry for Georgia, which will take a stand in favor of NATO. I'm sorry for Bulgaria and Latvia and all these parties who unfortunately will side with the Americans. And this is one of the main reasons I'm not 100% red-pilled on Father Vagianakis, is because I'm not convinced about Georgia. I'm not convinced about Georgia siding with the NATO. I'm not convinced about them siding with the Americans. Unfortunately, Bulgaria, I don't know if they join that Croatian, Albanian, Kosovar union. Maybe it's over for them. Latvia, that's not even a question. It's over for Latvians and those people. I cannot see them emerging from this outside of a strong return to soft power influence in these places from the Russian side. But moving on, all of these situations are rapidly shifting and changing day by day, but we clearly see a picture of global conflicts playing themselves out along very similar political /strategic lines. A hot war around Eastern Europe / Mediterranean and the Caucasus, then playing out across effectively every continent. I haven't even scratched the surface of China and the Pacific and Oceania, with varying degrees of military violence, can accurately be described as a world war. Were people calling it World War II during the Anschluss? Of course not. I've been making that point for a while. But of course, these are famous pictures from Metropolitan Jovitos. They will close the Bosphorus Straits, and their friends, they talk about the Turks, of course, closing the Bosphorus Straits. They have control over the Sea of Marmara. And their friends, their pseudo-friends, the Russians, from friends will transform into enemies in one night. And there will not be a single city in Turkey which will not be bombarded. And I just want to make it clear to people how strongly Turkey has sort of relied on the goodwill of the Russians, despite, I mean, the Turks, they received all of those Azov prisoners in that exchange, and those people, many of those people were supposed to be sent to Russia. Many of those people were supposed to be held in prison. Erdogan just let them go. Of course, Erdogan has also openly discussed Crimean independence, Crimean rejoining Ukraine, the supposed Tatar minority being oppressed in Crimea, very anti-Russian rhetoric when it comes to the Black Sea, because it's very clear that Erdogan wants to be the most powerful domineer of the Black Sea. Of course, their control over the Dardanelles and Bosphorus gives them that. Their huge coastline on the southern Black Sea, shared with all these other countries, Romania, Ukraine, and then Russia. Russia with its, again, before the SMO, comparatively smaller share of the coast. Turkey saw that as something that they liked, and they want to maintain that because, look, historically, the Russians and the Turks have been, I mean, the Ottoman Empire and the Russian Empire were some of the main clashers throughout the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. This is, people who know history know about the Crimean Wars, know about all these other wars and naval battles that occurred, and how very often the British, other Western powers, and their banking financiers, them boys, would often ally with the Ottomans, with the Muslims, against the Russians. So, there's your based Western civilization, against the backwards Eastern horde that was the Russian Tsardom, which, of course, I'm being facetious here, but again, I went on to talk about what's going on there. He says, we are living in the second and a half year of the Third World War, but they simply are not saying this to us. Metropolitan Neophytos has been very much, he's in Cyprus, so Syria, Lebanon, it's right there. A lot of people have talked about how certain events in Syria were the precipitation of this, and then how the SMO in Ukraine was what sort of solidified it, and that's exactly what Metropolitan Neophytos is talking about here. This is some stuff about China and Taiwan. I say another aspect, of course, and this has been discussed as much, if not more, by Metropolitan Neophytos and other saints, will be the global food, fuel, and resource crisis as supply chains suffer and collapse. India has banned wheat exports and other nations with food surplus. Why will we be looking for donkeys? Because there will be no fuel. Pay attention to how detailed the prophecies are. Hotels will be closed and there will be houses left unfinished on top of the columns. So we're talking about a sort of energy turn down, a global recession, again, if there's a true war with the Russians and there's a true war with Iran and Saudi Arabia gets involved, then you people that are more far afield, you might not be getting your fuel. So be sure to pray for that. Nations with food surplus, like Russia, has been cut off from markets and could benefit from maintaining its own local surplus. The US and UK and other nations reliant on global food supply chains and inconceivably loyal to the current sanctions regime will suffer fuel and food shortages. This is Eldris Galactia of Crete, who reposed in 2021. She says, in America, because the worst of all awaits her, poor America. So a lot of people ask me questions about what's going to happen in America. And I think a lot of famine-related items, fuel shortages and potential natural disasters, that might be what's in our future for a whole number of reasons, and not alone just our support for the genocide in Gaza or the arming of the Ukrainian forces that have continued the fratricidal war there. He's Metropolitan Neophytos. The secret is to learn to share your food, your medicine, your soul, your comfort, your love, and your support, especially with the weak. So, great message there. Nothing I can disagree with. It is important to remember that Metropolitan Neophytos accurately foretold the lockdowns and pandemic, and is citing prophecies from saints who spoke in the 20th century. Most of his recent predictions, even the translations about food and war, were all before the Russia-Ukraine war began. This is true. This is the war to come, Metropolitan Neophytos. Notice the date, January 19th, 2022. When did the SMO begin? February 24th, 2022. This is more from Metropolitan Neophytos. Well, that's from Father Elpidios, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, February 17th, 2022. That radio interview occurred many days before that even. Ukraine and the Ukrainian Church, Metropolitan Neophytos. Of course, we got stuff from Elder Ephraim. This is February 25th, right after the invasion. But again, this was translated. These talks were given before the invasion began. So for anybody questioning the prescience and the accuracy of His Eminence, our bishop, as I call him, I provided the receipts. I'm glad I did that. I have no time frame here, and I make no particular predictions for the course of these conflicts besides a general direction towards a Russia-Turkey clash with the involvement of larger power blocks. Haters, read this. This is what I've been talking about. I'm not coming on here talking about February 4th, 2025, June 6th, 2025, it's all over. St. John Vitat's is returning imminently. Not the game we play here on WWN. It's about a sober-minded, realist geopolitical analysis with a backdrop and foundation in the prophetic reality that our living saints has given us. One of those living saints being this man. And these events that will come, wars and the ones that will follow, migration and disease, will lead many, many people with good intentions, not only to repentance, but to the knowledge of the truth of orthodoxy. And that is why you must be white-pilled. That is why you must not be black-pilled. Because again, what's the worst that happens? You die in the famine, you die in the war. Well, if you're prepared, you'll be with your Creator in heaven. You will be with the Panagia. You will be with Christ. And He will say to you, well done, my good and faithful servant. So don't despair, don't worry, and realize that God will use this for good. God is going to use this to spread the gospel and grow the church. So do not blackpill. Too many people blackpilling, despite the fact that, the show is about the ongoing Third World War and massive destruction. We get into that, the disputes in the Orthodox Church over Ukraine and neo-papalism from Constantinople, as well as persecution of the Jerusalem Patriarchate and the Holy Land, are connected deeply with the global conflict, as are many other phenomena in Holy Orthodoxy. So, of course, I talk about the schism. I show some examples. Today in the city of Stry, the Lvov region, Ukrainian neo-Nazis broke into a church during liturgy, not mass, brother, and poured green paint on the face of the priest of the UOC, the Moscow Patriarchate, Father Vladimir. This has happened all the time. Thank you, Dave. I know you're Catholic, so appreciate you posting that. We've covered the persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church extremely extensively on World War Now. Now, my favorite subject, Cyprus. I will likely update this thread in the future as other things unfold and the arc of history bends towards the saints. I like saying that the arc of history does bend towards the saints. But for now, I will discuss the place of Cyprus in the current fold and get back to this as things transpire. Everyone should be aware of the situation in Cyprus if you watch World War Now. Metropolitan Neophytos says Cyprus will be spared military fighting as Turkey will need its troops elsewhere against Russia. The shortages and collapse will still be a problem for Cypriots, but the task at hand for them is to convert the settlers in the north to Orthodoxy. And so this is the big problem. We may not have a war in Cyprus, but we won't have essential goods either. And you'll wake up one day and you'll hear that the troops are leaving to go fight in Turkey. And you then have to be mindful to manage northern Cyprus, which will have no troops, but will be full of settlers, as it is now. And we clergymen bear a great responsibility towards Christians and Muslims alike. Metropolitan Neophytos, his brother, was killed during the invasion of Cyprus by the invading Turks. Yet he still actively evangelizes, and he returns to the ruined monasteries to liturgize, and he knows that his duty as a shepherd of Christ's flock is to spread the gospel even to those that murder your own family members. So he's such an example. I love him so much, and I wish there were less haters, because a lot of people don't like him. I talk about things and people are like, oh, he said that women who have anal sex while they're pregnant, their children will be gay. This guy's crazy. It's like, well, frankly, he was spitting. Like, I'm sorry, but where's the lie? Straight facts as far as I'm concerned. But that, and of course, he says you need to repent if you receive the vaccine. I think I agree. I'm not going to elaborate. The Cypriot Church is divided on the question of supporting the schismatic church in Ukraine, but the current patriarch, supporter of the schismatics, is 8. Well, here we get into my biggest my biggest false prediction was that I predicted that Metropolitan Athanasios would be the next Archbishop of Cyprus. Wishful thinking. We got Archbishop Georgios instead through a number of deep state machinations, and I have suffered personally from that. When I went to Cyprus, people were keeping their eyes open. Maybe I'll get into that story at a different time. But I referenced this, of course, to St. Porphyrios' prophecy, which I believe is still being fulfilled. I do believe that the archbishopric of Archbishop Georgios in Cyprus will be short-lived, and I think the next archbishop won't even necessarily be Metropolitan Athanasios, but it could be Metropolitan Neophytos himself. I think God may be preparing him for that. But for those that don't know about the prophecy, 30 years ago, St. Porphyrios said to Metropolitan Neophytos of Morphou, so this was obviously in the early 90s, you will see, my son, that when you pass your 50th year, this was years ago, Metropolitan Neophytos is 62 now or something, 63, that God has a plan to change the crew of the ship. Metropolitan Neophytos said, what do you mean you're on the crew of the ship? The ship of Christ is the one holy Catholic and apostolic church, only this church. He tells me whoever is a captain, whether he be a patriarch, an abbot, a priest, a deacon, he will change them if they are not doing their job well. He will allow a variety of events to happen, sickness, earthquakes, floods, and a massive war. And after all this, there will come a great peace with the new crew of the ship, which Christ will bring. And in the crew, it is not only the captains, but also the simple people. People, remember, the laity, we are part of the church. We are the church militant ourselves. So don't underestimate your power as far as the life of the church is concerned. Ultimately, and we are already seeing this, every country will be forced to reckon with their place in the new multipolar world and decide how they will deal with the shortages and political turmoil. Prepare in body and soul. Updates should come as they occur. And World War Now was born. September, episode 1 dropped. And after all, we know who will be victorious. Revelation tells us this, the last book of the New Testament. St. Paisios used to tell us the things you will be hearing, you will be seeing, little by little, are going to be so many that you won't even be able to keep track of them. And he recommended that you switch off the TVs, even back then. Good advice. Here's some wisdom from Metropolitan Neophytos about leaving the city. Here was news about Israel, about Russia shuttering the Jewish agency, which I think that might have reopened since then, so oh well. Some more updates, and then here we go. Now we're getting into some Turkey stuff. However, actually, really quick, reminds me. Let's go back up here to Cyprus. I want to read some more from Eldris Galactia. So let's share this. This is a very important passage here. This was Metropolitan Neophytos. This was that TASS interview that he gave. And I'm not going to read all these words for obvious reasons because I don't want to get censored on YouTube. Obviously, those that listen on the Substack know that I don't hold back on these things, so don't call me a cuck. But the hey, now the live stream is not TV. This is a blessed medium, not really. But Metropolitan Neophytos does say that he will begin to speak. You know, Saint Porphyrios told him that after his 50th year, he will begin to speak, and his words and his wisdom will be spread via the technology of the time. And so this live stream, I believe, is part of that technology. And we are, of course, bringing you the words and wisdom of Metropolitan Neophytos in English. But he said, Soros, Rothschild, Rockefeller, Kissinger, blah, blah, blah. They're Zionists. What does Zelensky, Mitsotakis have in common? There are 3 seeds, blah, blah, blah, these sorts of things. But the interesting part here, he says, he read an excerpt from Gerontissa Galactia's book, which hopefully this book will be translated into English soon from UMP, who she told him the following. A few things will happen, and in Cyprus, the Turks will pass through to come to Crete. The Turks will also come here, Crete. They will come secretly and quickly, but they will have little success. Then Russia will deal with them once and for all. So there's some lore there. But back to what's going on here. This is from July 13th, 2022. As Erdogan prepares to meet with Putin and Raisi. Raisi is now dead. His opposition has pledged aggression towards Greece. Turkey is facing record inflation and a crucial decision regarding NATO. This was about Sweden and Finland. Russia shutting off or limiting Turkey's energy flow would spell disaster for the current regime. And of course, Turkey has become more and more of a gas hub since this happened. But I posted this, and this was before even the 2023 election where Kılıçdaroğlu almost beat Erdogan. I don't want to say almost, but came within a few percentage points of dethroning Erdogan. And we got some more wisdom from Metropolitan Neophytos. Erdogan will fall, and after him, inexperienced people, pro-Westerners, Kemalists will take power. They will create big problems. And people say, oh, the Kemalists will take power. They're secular. They're liberal. Won't they? They won't be as aggressive towards Greece. They won't, they'll want to be peaceful and whatnot. But if there's one thing that's consensus in Turkish politics, it's the Greek question. Everything else is almost up for grabs. Migration, Islamization, the economy. When it comes to seizing those islands from Greece, when it comes to recognizing Northern Cyprus, these sorts of things, everyone's on the same page. This is Kılıçdaroğlu, the former leader of the CHP, who has since been usurped by İmamoğlu, the guy that was arrested recently and is causing the massive protests in Turkey. They said the Turkish government will change. We will be the new government. I agree it won't be him, but the CHP will likely be the new government. This is in response to the Greeks rearming their islands. He says, let them talk. We will show them what happened to these weapons in these Greek islands when we come to power. And then back to Metropolitan Neophytos talking about the Russians turning on the Turks. This was back when North Korea recognized the independence of the DPR and the LPR. And here's some prophecies from, this is part of why I doubt exactly what Father Elpidios was talking about, because Elder Gabriel of Georgia has a lot of prophecies about this stuff. It says, while the NATO/Atlantic Bloc has used its culture and NGO wings to infiltrate the Orthodox nation of Georgia, the words of St. Gabriel or Gabadzi remain hopeful. Perhaps Georgia will not side with globalism. There's currently 83% support for restoring the monarchy. Georgia will be enlightened in the end days. This will be revealed not materially, but spiritually. Believers from many countries will gather in Georgia. The wicked deeds started by communists are only a prologue. The worst is ahead. The world has never witnessed such a sorrow from the time immemorial. Georgia will be protected by the Holy Virgin, as Iberia is the country chosen by the Holy Mother of God as her lot. St. Seraphim of Sarov said similar things about Russia with the Divyevo Trench built at the Divyevo convent, which supposedly, the Antichrist will not rule beyond that trench. In the last days, a man will be saved by love, humility, and kindness. Kindness will open the gates of heaven. Humility would lead one into heaven. A man whose heart is filled with love will see God. And of course, I'm going to get into some prophecies from St. Philomenos here in a second that relates to what's going on with Georgia and leaves a bit of an open-ended interpretation as to what is going to happen, but it tells us the results. So I'll get into that. Obviously, Russia made it clear that they were watching Ukraine closely. Hungary openly discussed the possibility of a peacekeeping and military emergency in Ukraine. Obviously, if they went into Transcarpathia, that would be huge. This was before the fall of Assad. I was just updating things. This was before the podcast began, so I felt the need to keep track of things here. Immediately following the meeting of Turkish, Russian, and Iranian Turkish incursions into Kurdistan began with multiple tourists/civilians killed in an attack attributed to Turkish forces. Turkey is denying it and deflecting to a third party. Iran-aligned groups mobilizing. Will Russia and Turkey clash? And that's always been the question that we've been watching. And I think one of the big questions is, if the clash starts before Erdogan falls, I fear for Russia because they might be aligned with Israel. But if Erdogan falls and the CHP takes power, I wouldn't be surprised if Israel even literally orchestrated that to get Erdogan out, because Erdogan is at least openly, rhetorically, he's not necessarily a friend of Israel. More updates about Moldova and Transnistria. This was when the model of the recreation of the Hagia Sophia was bombed by Turkey, which a lot of symbolism there. Symbolism happens. This is when Medvedev shared this map with huge Poland and tiny little Ukraine. Some more Chinese warmongering. Here was when I discussed the situation between Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is very relevant now. This is all the way back in 2021 when Srpska has effectively, this was years ago when they basically became an independent state on paper, not on paper, but in practice, with kind of cutting themselves off from the central government there. We have over 500 viewers, guys, across X and YouTube. This is massive. I don't know what to, I want to say thank you to everybody, but I guess a lot of people are watching on X. That makes sense. So if you're on X, let us know in the comments. But seen some good discussions and whatnot, but we don't need to be debating about Father Peter. Father Peter is a wonderful priest who has never been disciplined by his bishops. So pretty much the end of that. More stuff from Serbia, which obviously has been going on. Then I had a whole diversion here when there was big fighting in Kosovo that happened back in late July 2022. Many forget. More stuff about China. I guess I'm about wrapping up the thread here. But what do y'all think? How well did I do? I think this is some pretty prescient stuff. But here was what I was talking about with Turkey and Erdogan. President Erdogan, from the first day, Turkey declared that the annexation of Crimea was illegal. Crimea should be returned to Ukraine, of which it is an integral part. Turkey continues to lurch towards supporting Ukraine and its NATO friends. Turkey fears Russia controlling the North Black Sea coast. Look at this. Look at this guy. Some stuff about the Kingman Islands going on. See, even Pope Francis. We're living through Third World War. That's the patriarch of the West for you. And he's still alive. He almost died, but he made it. Doesn't look like we're going to be, he doesn't have long. He's probably within the next 2 years, it's over for Francis. So new Pope, going to be covering that obviously on the show. Here's some more. President Erdogan has ramped up his bellicose rhetoric towards Greece. Many prophecies regarding marriage. I guess this is very appropriate. Greek Independence Day, very appropriate subject matter. Many prophecies regarding the maritime borders with Greece and Cyprus have passed. Turkey has been flooding Greek islands with illegal migrants for years now. Will they strike, or is Erdogan just pining for electoral support? This is from good friend Baron of the Taiga. Erdogan issues warning over Greece over the Aegean Islands. Your occupying of the islands does not bind us. When the time comes, the hour comes, we will do what is necessary. Greece, look at history. If you go further, you will pay a heavy price. Do not forget Izmir. We will do what is necessary. We come at night, said Turkish President Erdogan. So that's a question there. You know, of course, the junta situation in Myanmar is obviously still ongoing, with Russia being their primary supporters. More Russia-Greece stuff. And then here we have more prophecies from St. Lawrence of Chernigov, who prophesied many things that are currently ongoing in Ukraine. Constant Coast Guard clashes on these Greek islands between Turkey and Greece. Here's some details about when Azerbaijan entered Armenia proper. They occupied many of these places, which people just don't like. People just forget happened. Really crazy, actually. But yeah, I don't want to miss anything here. I forgot how long I carried on this thread before I started the show. You know, here's about the failure of Pashinyan and these other things. But you know, World War III, Kyrgyzstan, all these clashes. But I guess it's a good time to react to some super chats. Let me read the super chats here, the few that I've gotten. Send some super chats. I want to answer your questions, whatever you want to talk about. Let's answer some questions. From Josh, big love from my boy Conrad, $20. Thank you, Josh. Love you, man. What a guy. Great guy. Here from Edward O'Grady, $5. Any chance of an East-West Christian initiative to diffuse Middle East Zionism and create lasting peace? I don't know exactly what that means, but obviously I support, insofar as realpolitik goes, you know, I talk to Isaac Swalem a lot. You know, a more secular form of Arab nationalism would allow Christians to be more relevant, to have more of a say. But at the same time, look, I'm with David. People didn't like when David said that perhaps the situation in the Middle East is so bad because of all the intercommunion. You know, there's the unspoken rule in the Antiochian Patriarchate between the Melkites, the Maronites, you know, the Armenians, the Orientals there, the Uniates, that they all kind of sometimes take communion at each other's churches. You know, there's a lot of ecumenism. People marry all the time. You know, in the other churches, you know, the spouses will be from different churches, and people just act like it's not a problem. And you bring up, well, they're different. You know, you bring this up and they're like, oh, you're not an Arab. You don't know what's going on. We have to unite against the Muslims. Which sure. I'm not pro-Islamic here, but you know, the tenets of the faith have to be followed, and we can't just be hooking up with papists and acting like it's not going to have some spiritual consequences. That being said, obviously, I support Christians in Lebanon, Syria, all of these places. But I mean, look, Joseph Ayoun, he's a Maronite. He's the president of Lebanon. Look how much it's had to take for him to finally call out the Israelis. It took them literally just not leaving the 5 points that they entered for him to be like, Israel is not leaving. It's like, well, you're the one that just helped dismantle Hezbollah. So I don't know who's going to resist them now, right? Got something from Rai here. Thoughts on apostate prophet becoming Orthodox. Oh, here's the other side of this stream. This could just become a drama stream. You know, I don't want it to, but maybe that's what it will become. The second half of the show will be me talking about drama. As far as apostate prophet, I'm very happy that he is a catechumen. I'm very happy him and his family are attending Orthodox Church. I hope they get received. And at the end of the day, this might be controversial. That's better than him changing his mind on anything else. If he becomes Orthodox and receives the sacraments, that would be the best thing for him. And it would be the best thing to help him, you know, maybe move past some of these opinions. And obviously, I agree with Father Josiah Trenum. I agree with Father Paul Trubenbach. I agree with all the priests that have made it very, very clear Zionism is not Orthodox. You can't be a Zionist and be Orthodox. And that goes beyond just the reality on the ground of the persecution of the Christians and everybody there, and the genocide in Gaza, and you know, the Hasidim that poop on churches and they keep people from the Holy Sepulchre and all this stuff. But beyond that, most Zionists believe in dual covenant theology. Most Zionists believe, if you're a Christian Zionist, that fundamentally Jews don't have to accept Jesus Christ, that let alone do they have to repent for his death or his murder. So if you are one of these Zionists and you've incorporated it into your Christianity, you probably are a heretic. You probably are denying a fundamental reality of Christian truth, which is that all men must accept Christ. All men must bond themselves to the church of Christ. They must sacramentally participate. They must confess that Jesus is Lord. And there's nobody that doesn't do that more explicitly than Jews, than the primary ethno-religious group that makes up Israel, which is an ethno-state. So that's my thoughts on it. I wish Ridvan and his wife the best. I saw recently that he sort of, I don't know, apologized, kind of wanted to walk back a lot of the vitriol. I don't know. I thought I gave a pretty reasonable take. We can go to my, what did I say? Do we want to read what I said? Is this just me looking through my X? Is that what this is all just going to be in the future? It's looking through the timeline. What did I say? See, Ian Miles, this goober, Erdogan might be getting overthrown. Who saw this coming? These guys. Did I already pass it? I think I did. Where did I say all that? Here's me calling out one of my college professors. He didn't like it. He didn't like what I said. Well, I didn't like his class, so that's how that goes. But where is my quote tweet of, or my subtweet of Ridvan? I don't know where it went. But I basically said, like, look, you've seen people do this as well. People crash out talking about how the church isn't National Socialist enough or something, or the church isn't, I don't know, any number of other more right-wing things, as opposed to the church isn't Zionist enough. But people come in with their baggage and they demand that orthodoxy, which they've kind of clued in as this fundamental truth, and when they realize that orthodoxy is true, they kind of want to be like, well, if orthodoxy is fundamentally true, I got to make sure it supports this thing that I also like already know is fundamentally true. And if it doesn't, then, I might have some problems, which people do all the time. You got to put your baggage to the side and embrace, the truth of the church and the truth of Christ and the, objective reality, that's in there. And I know a lot of people, I know we are in a liberal zeitgeist. I know most of our clergy and leadership are baby boomers or even older. And that has led to, I do believe there are some fundamental realities that are not addressed by the current flock. I guess that's why I very much believe in this new crew that St. Porphyrios is talking about, with issues like race and gender. I believe there is some fundamental untruthing going on as far as certain things are being taught, but I'm very white-pilled on that as well. Nobody going to seminary is still sort of deluded with these boomer post-war mindsets about full racial equality and all of that. But this is from Rye, another $5. Thank you, sir. St. Philomenos did point out the age-old Judeo-Christian tradition of saints getting martyred. What was the prophecy by him you almost mentioned? Alrighty, let's try to find that. I posted the video a long time ago of St. Philomenos. Let me see if it just comes up if I search. St. Philomenos prophecies. Here we go. First search result. It's your boy. All right. I almost want to just play this video. I might provide some commentary, but this is really good stuff. So thank you for reminding me, Rye.
Ξεκινήσαμε να μαζεύουμε στοιχεία για το βίο του Αγίου Φιλουμένου και πήγαμε στα Ιεροσόλυμα, εκεί στο Πανάγιον Τάφο με προσέγγισε ο Αγιογραφήτης μοναχός Παντελεήμων, όσοι έχετε πάρει, είναι ο φύλακας του Παναγίου Τάφου. Και μου είπε, σε παρακαλώ, γράψε δεσπότη μου στο βιβλίο που θα βγάλετε για τον Άγιο Φιλούμενο. Ο Άγιος Φιλούμενος, πώς ξέρετε, είναι Κύπριος από την Ορούντα και εμαρτύρησε στο Φρέα του Ιακώβ το 1979. Αρνούμενος να φύγει όταν τον επίεσαν σιωνιστές Εβραίοι να εγκαταλείψει το προσκύνημα εκεί που για 2.000 χρόνια ήταν χριστιανικό. Παρέμεινε εκεί στο προσκύνημα και μία νύχτα προχερή, δύο φανατικοί Εβραίοι με πέλεκι τον εσφαγίασαν.
My bad. This is important, this image, because it shows what really happened. Notice two dudes here hitting him with axes. the story that you'll read, even on Orthodox Wiki, even from Israel, from Israel, from normies, they'll tell you it was just one crazy guy, this dude, but it was 4 guys. They snuck in. It was planned. You can read about it on the Metropolis of Morphu website. That's how it went down. So let's dive back into that.
Αργότερα το ύψαλον του ευρέθη άφθορον, ευωδιάτρων και πολλά θαύματα επιτελών. Εμείς λόγω της σχέσης του τόπου, η Ορούντα ανήκει στην Μητρόπολη Μόρφου, πήγαμε με τις μοναχές της Μονής του Αγίου Νικολάου Ορούντας και μαζέψαμε στοιχεία. Ανάμεσα στα όλα αυτά ήταν και το εξής, το οποίο λέει την κατάληξη όλων αυτών των γεγονότων που ήδη άρχισαν να επιτελούνται. Ακούτε πώς το καταφέρει ο πατήρ Παντελεήμου. Όταν ήμουν ακόμη λαϊκός, αναφέρει, ήρθα ως προσκυνητής στα Ιεροσόλυμα με τον κύριο Δημήτρη Παναγόπουλο, τον γνωστό ιεροκήρυκο. Τις μέρες που ήμασταν εδώ ξεναγός στο δικό μας λεωφορείο, ήταν ο πατήρ Φιλούμενος, ο κατοπινός ιερομάρτυρας Φιλούμενος. Τη μέρα λοιπόν που θα επισκεπτόμασταν το όρο Σταβό, μόλις πήραμε τον δρόμο από τον οποίο φαίνεται η ευρύτερη εκεί περιοχή μας, είπε, παιδιά μου, θα σας πω κάτι, το οποίο εσείς θα ζήσετε, αλλά εγώ δεν θα ζω για να το δω. Μέχρι εδώ, στον κάμπο δηλαδή του Σταβόρ, θα έρθει ο Ρωσικός στρατός. Θα κατέβει από τον Κάφκασο. Προσέξτε αυτήν την λεπτομέρεια. Ο Κάφκασος είναι η Γεωργία. Και θα κάνει πολλές καταστροφές. Ο σκοπός του θα είναι να φτάσει στα Ιεροσόλυμα, αλλά εδώ θα σταματήσει. Δεν θα επιτρέψει ο Θεός να πάνε παρακάτω. Αυτό πιστεύω ήταν μια αποκάλυψη που έδωσε ο Θεός στον Άγιο εκείνη τη συγκεκριμένη μέρα, μια και ο ίδιος ήταν αυστηρά οδηγόλογος και όταν μιλούσε μόνο για να οδηγήσει τους ανθρώπους στον Χριστό. Αυτά ο Άγιος Φιλούμενος έναν χρόνο πριν το μαρτύριον του 1978. Κάτι άλλο. Δεν ξέρω αν έχετε διαβάσει ένα βιβλίο που δύσκολα κυκλοφορεί, ενός Αγίου της Γεωργίας. Ακούσατε προηγούμενα από τον Κάφκασο. Οπότε από εκεί θα ξεκινήσει ο μεγάλος πόλεμος. Είναι ένας σύγχρονος Άγιος της Γεωργίας, ο Όσιος Γαβριήλ, ο διαχριστός Σαλός, ο οποίος εκοιμήθη ένα χρόνο μετά τον Καιροπαϊσίο, το 1995. Διάβασα μια προφητεία του που λέει «Αχ, Γεωργία, χώρα μου, θα λιώσεις σαν λαμπάδα από τους Ρώσους, αλλά μετά θα δοξαστείς». Μετά τα ενίκια που θα προκαλέσουν. Όταν τον ερώτησαν γιατί θα λιώσει η Γεωργία σαν λαμπάδα, από εδώ θα περάσουν τα στρατεύματα των Ρώσων για την Τουρκία. Άρα, περιμένουμε όλοι έναν μεγάλο, τεράστιο ρωσοτουρκικό πόλεμο.
So yeah, it shows you again. This is why I talk about how prophecies from Saint Paisios line up with prophecies from Saint Seraphim, Saint Lawrence of Chernigov. These are completely different Orthodox national churches. These people couldn't even speak each other's languages. We have Saint Philomenos, a Cypriot monk from the Jerusalem Patriarchate, giving a near identical prophecy to Saint Gabriel or Gabadzi of Georgia. And sure, they were almost contemporaries, but this is the Holy Spirit. This is how this works. I showed my icon of Saint Philomenos that I got in Cyprus. I got this at the monastery of Holy Panagia of Jerusalem, even though I did go to visit Stavrovouni Monastery, where Saint Philomenos, when he was 12 years old, with his twin brother, went to become monks on top of one of the tallest mountains in Cyprus, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And yes, I will send this in the chat. Be sure to share it if you can. Just dropped it in the live chat there if people want to check it out. That video is so great, so powerful. I love St. Philomenos. It's become one of the more powerful intercessors that I've been aware of. Rice says veneration of St. Philomenos was starting to become more mainstream in the English-speaking Orthodox world. It definitely is. A lot of great comments from you guys. The live chat is great. What did someone just say? Someone's talking about... Yeah, right. St. Philomenos did point out the age-old Judeo-Christian tradition of saints getting martyred. It's a prophecy of him you almost mentioned. That was what I was talking about. Where was that guy talking about the new czar and all this kind of stuff? I mean, I can just answer people's questions in the chat. It's easier. If you want me to answer a question, it's easier if you send a super chat. I can try to sort through all of this. Someone's asking, can we debate the controversy around Elder Dionysios? I know some people that like him and some that don't. Not sure what to think about it. I don't know what there is to debate, man. Dionysios Kalamboukas has been kicked out of like 109 jurisdictions. Like at a certain level, is it not your fault? You get kicked out of the Church of Greece. You get kicked out of the Jerusalem Patriarchate. You get kicked out of Mount Athos. You get kicked out of the Serbian Church. You get kicked out of the Moscow Patriarchate. Now you get kicked out of the Georgian Church? I don't know. Are they all wrong? Were they all just wrong? I don't think that I don't think that's the case. And I'd heard from people, especially people in, I mean, they got kicked out of Rocor. Come on. And look, I know that St. Nina's Monastery in Maryland, I know these places, like they didn't mask, they stayed open during the pandemic, and God bless them for that. They were canonically offering the services. The Eucharist was legitimate. They were just also part of a cult that was within the church. That's the unfortunate reality of it. And look, you can read, there's a lot of, I don't want to link all these things that I've read. I don't know the people that made them, but the accusations are pretty much irrefutable. They've abused people for their money. They've tricked people. I mean, look, they'll baptize some 18-year-old and then 2 weeks later make them a monk, and then a few months later make them like a schema monk. It's not okay. It's not what we need to be doing. I'll go big mode here, but look, I don't know that many details about it. I never visited any of those monasteries, but look, the fact that the Georgian Patriarchate felt the need to lay aside all three of the abbots and abbesses in one day like that, it's clear that this was something that needed to be taken care of. And look, I can't tell you what to do. You got to talk to your priest. You got to talk to your bishop about it. I would not want to meet Dionysios Kalamboukas. I've heard from people, I've heard from priests in Greece that his cult has been known for 15 plus years at this point. He claims to have been affiliated with Elder Emilianos of Simona Petra, and they deny that. The monks on Mount Athos want nothing to do with the Dionysios Kalamboukas cult. And look, when they left Rocor, they joined the Georgians basically because they knew there'd be less spiritual oversight. I'm not sure how involved Metropolitan Saba of the Georgian Patriarchate in America really is. It seems it took him a while to figure a lot of this stuff out. So look, I pray that maybe this is overblown. I pray maybe they repent, maybe they come back. I would love, but the real worry about this is what's going to happen to the monasteries. Does the Patriarchate, does the Georgian Church have any actual power to replace these monks, to put new people in there? Or, as I'm assuming and probably would predict, there's the monastic community itself owns the property. They have an LLC or something like that, or a trust, and they're just going to enter into a schism. They've already been caught con-celebrating. Elder Dionysios has with, I think it's Metropolitan or Archbishop Melchizedek of the genuine Orthodox Church, and they've used him to tonsure monks and these other things. So they're probably just going to join them, some dumb old calendarists. So yeah. What was he saying? He was saying it's the prophecies of Elder Thaddeus and Elder Gabriel of Serbia. Send me a message about that. Send me some links to some stuff on the Discord. The best place, that's one thing I got to shield, the Discord. Join the World War Now Discord server. I'll even drop the link in the chat. Join the World War Now Discord. You got to get vetted, but in the future, I might even create a chat on the Discord for people to send me things to discuss on these streams. So if you want to participate in what's going to happen with the streams, check this out. Here's the invite link. I just dropped it in the chat for the World War Now Discord. We have whole chats dedicated to prophecies and discussing them. So join that, check it all out, and yeah, just make sure that you join. And there's a great community we have over there. We talk. Yeah. Send me Instagram, Telegram. Telegram is good, but and we got some Brother Nathaniel discourse happening in the chat now. I don't know if I want to. Is this what this is going to be? The show is just going to be me going live, and everyone's going to be like, address this crazy controversy in the church. And it's like, look, man, I'm just a guy. I'm not a priest. I'm not even a seminarian. I'm literally a journalist. And obviously I don't say that lightly. I'm one of the good ones, but don't, let's not, I'm not a guru. I can't solve these problems. You know, I could talk about it. I can give my analysis, but but no, please, Serbian prophecies are probably one of the least tapped in. You know, I know Georgian prophecies, Greek prophecies, Russian prophecies, even American prophecies from Elder Ephraim, these sorts of people. But let's love to hear some more from Serbs, from people going on in the Balkans. Because, I mean, look, right now, you talked about how the Tsar could emerge to help the Serbs. Crazy things are emerging right now in the Balkans. We have this new alliance between Croatia, Kosovo, and Albania. They're trying to arrest Dodik. Turkey is talking about, you know, getting more involved with Albania and the Bosnians and all these sorts of things. So that could be what does it. Maybe it's, you know, something that's going on in the Balkans, and then that prompts Turkey to go move in on the islands, and then, you know, all sorts of other things happening. But I know, I mean, apparently other Orthodox countries could get their own czars that, you know, could be part of a new ecumene, you know, and they say there will be a new ecumenical council. St. Porphyrios talked about it, a 10th ecumenical council, because we know the Photian synods and the Palamite synods were the 8th and 9th ecumenical councils. All right, here, let's, yes, Felicia, finally, a wrench. Someone with a wrench is here. I trust you fully to ban anyone that you don't like. I fully vest in you the power of the emperor. Who was asking about, address Trump being the new Constantine. Yeah, this was, I thought it was keck. I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious, actually. But I retweeted this, right? Yeah. You remind here. Let's watch.
Mr. President, you lead the world. You are the leader of the world. You are the leader in championing freedom and peace between all people. We are very grateful to you for your support of Greece and your support for the cause of justice in Cyprus. Through your leadership, you embody the values of our Christian faith.
Look, say what you will about this man right here. Bro's a warrior for Hellenism at a certain level. I know people think he's like a Turkish agent, possibly. But, you know, this guy talks more about Hellenism than the gospel. So Greece is number one.
And love for the gospel. You remind me of the great Roman emperor, Constantine the Great. This emperor, your dear Mr. President, is the one who founded and built the magnificent city of Constantinople, my birthplace, known today as Istanbul. It is my great honor to present you with this holy cross.
Look, say what you will about Elpidophoros. I think it was good he gave him this cross. The problem with this is this is giving me like Trump Antichrist energy. Like, Trump is not Orthodox. Trump isn't even meaningfully Christian. But here we have him being compared to the emperor who called the First Ecumenical Council. If somehow Trump was involved in the calling of the 10th Ecumenical Council, I would be skeptical. But This is almost like Elpidophoros' version of when the monks on Mount Athos put Putin on the bishop's seat. So, yeah, I don't think Trump is the Antichrist, obviously, but I think Trump is a type of the Antichrist. And I think the fact that he's gotten so many people from disparate political factions to support him in the midst of this huge third world war and his escalations against Iran, I mean, I think it's undisputable. But I thought that was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty keck. And then, of course, did I retweet this? Let's go to the World War Now X. Maybe I didn't retweet this. I may have just shared it on... Oh, there's me. I'm live. But there is... Let me just search it up. Right after, this huge Greek triumphalist, Elpidophoros is calling it Constantinople, he's calling Trump Constantine. But right the next day, we've got Hakan Fidan visiting, Marco Rubio, big Turkish flags up here. So Erdogan is fighting for survival of the dictatorship in Turkey by means of expressing nationwide protests against his regime. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the Americans will do. I don't see Erdogan as a huge enemy of the Americans, but I also don't see the opposition as somebody that the Americans would be against either. And as far as from a global homo perspective, obviously they're going to want to support the opposition. They're the ones in favor of, the Istanbul Agreement that's super soft on homosexuality, all this kind of stuff. Of course, we've got Cyprus is Greece, F-bomb Turkey. I agree Cyprus is Greece, but I've seen the big Northern Cyprus flag down across the border. I've been quite near the DMZ, the Ukrainian, the United Nations demilitarized zone in Cyprus. So it's unfortunate. And according to the prophecies, there's going to be something happening there, but then they're going to have to withdraw. And the job of the Greeks and the Christians there will be, to resist the urge to do a reverse ethnic cleansing and to preach the gospel. And that's what we can always hope for here. But I shared something else about something related. I'm already forgetting. But reading the chat here, a lot of good stuff. Someone sent something interesting and I was trying to read it. Where can we buy the World War Now merch? I want it now. You can buy it when I stop being lazy and make a store. I don't know if someone knows a lot about online merch sales and wants to send me a message. Let me know. But yeah, we got the blue. It's like the Q&A color. I use this color for the Q&As. We got the green for Ether Hour, which I think this one looks clean. And then, of course, the classic. This is the one I wear the most. The classic World War Now tactical. And I love this sweater. I wear this sweater all the time. And I have another one, not a trucker. It's like a normal baseball cap. I wore that one to Mount Athos, and it got ruined with sweat. So there's that. Let's look at what we're looking for. Yeah, the monastery where I bought this is here. I still tell people this might be the most amazing place I've ever been. And this was on the same trip where I went to Mount Athos. So keep that in perspective. But this is the Trapeza Hall. If people watched my live stream with Father Peter Hears about our trip, you got Elder Friend. This is in the middle of nowhere in rural Cyprus, at least an hour away from towns or anything like that. And that's very far on this small island, but they love Elder Ephraim. And it was wonderful. Of course, Elder Ephraim. Maybe next episode I'll talk more about Elder Ephraim and some of the St. John Vitatz's prophecies, but we're already an hour 20 in here. Don't need to broach a whole new subject. But Yeah, here's a video of, you can see right across what we're looking at over there. That's the northern Cyprus. That's the occupied side where the Turks are. But this monastery was beautiful. They had a whole chapel dedicated to Elder Ephraim. They had some of Elder Ephraim's vestments for veneration. And in this chapel, the iconostasis was right over here, out of frame. The abbot immediately emerged from the iconostasis with the jawbone of St. Dionysius the Areopagite for us to start, for us to venerate, which was amazing. And they had that in this reliquary. Oh my gosh, they had a piece of Christ's robe, relics from Saints Joachim and Anna, relics of St. Alexander Sfirsky, St. John the Forerunner. Truly one of the most amazing places I've ever been. Yeah, calling you out in public. I know. Well, consider this the soft launch. Now everyone knows what they'll get in the in a time that will probably far too long for everybody because I am lazy. But we stayed in a skeet that was owned by this monastery not far from the big monastery itself, and this was their extremely cozy chapel, one of the coziest places I've been. Another random icon of Elder Ephraim in their library. I found this at like 1 a.m. And this was the outside of the skeet, middle of nowhere. Beautiful Cyprus, just a beautiful place. I would totally live here. And they had pictures of Metropolitan Neophytos everywhere, which was wonderful. Even though he wasn't technically their Metropolitan, they were under Metropolitan Isaiah of Tomassus, who they liked as well. But yeah, I don't have I had a picture of the actual. Someone says, I want shirts of the pixel backgrounds you guys use in World War Now and Ether Hour. Those would be straight fire. Well, that would be an expensive shirt. That would be a lot of color. I'm assuming you're talking about, what we got going on here. The classic World War Now background with Constantinople with its minute. People are always like, why are the minarets there? It's like, it's real life. It is based on how it actually looks. So that is, that's why it looks like that. And hopefully they won't be always like that. But this is, this is me ostensibly, or Dimitri, or the World War Now viewer, whatever you want to project onto it, looking over the eternal city, Constantinople, and, watching and waiting for the prophecies to be fulfilled. But I don't know. Maybe I'll do my best. I can see if something like that. I can at least maybe a sticker. Maybe stickers with these would be good. I kind of want, and I'm going to have to figure out more about StreamYard. I think I would love for like this to be kind of going, like, I don't know, not like a green screen, but like it'd be cool if this could just like fill the screen next to me instead of this big black thing that you're seeing right next to me, and could be just like going. But so I hope that World War Now and I was an embroidered hoodie in black. I would wear it as a monk. I don't know if you're already a monk or not, but that would be great. For those that don't know, monastics do listen to the show for free. So if you have any monastic friends or know any monks that enjoy this type of content, not that you need to be talking about this stuff to monks all the time, but look, monks, they listen to podcasts, they listen to things every once in a while, audiobooks. Just tell them to let me know, and if they are a monastic in good standing with the Orthodox Church, I'll give them a free lifetime subscription to the paywall. So I'll be sure to do that. We've got a few dozen monastics that already listen, so don't miss out on that opportunity. But one thing I did want to react to one piece of footage before I kind of this has already devolved into me just talking, just yapping, which I was hoping it would. But this is, a few weeks ago, we had Patrick Lancaster on the show to talk about the situation specifically in Kursk, as Russia has, quickly we can look at this really quick before we watch the video. This is live UA map. It's biased towards Ukraine, but it's generally pretty accurate, and it shows what's going. This is, okay, let's zoom out. This is the world. You got Russia, Ukraine, and here, of course, is the Kursk front, and of course, Suja has been retaken. As you can see, Suja is now fully under the control of the Russians. These are the remaining. This is probably even smaller by now, but we have the remaining Ukrainian forces that have been surrounded. Of course, 17 hours. Yeah. In Kursk region, Ukrainian forces have repelled 18 Russian army assaults. General staff of, who knows if that's true. But the other thing I wanted to discuss was this nonsense right here. This is Belgorod. And as you can see, the Russians have made all sorts of incursions into Sumy and Kharkov. Sumy, of course, over here in response to the Suja situation. Kharkov down here near Belgorod. But look, they just let them get past. They just let them take these poor people in Zhuravilovka are now occupied by Ukrainians. Did we learn nothing from the Kursk situation? What are we doing? Is the border guard still all Chechens? I thought we were going to fix that problem. The Ukrainians decided that the humiliation in Kursk wasn't enough. So now we've got this Belgorod nonsense. They're just they're desperately trying to maintain a little bit of territory to somehow give it up in negotiations so that Russia has to give up, some of this, or, even more so potentially these, which again, I don't think is happening. But look, we've got the rest of Kherson region. We've got the rest of Zaporozhye regions. These aren't debatable. Russia should have secured these more at this point, so then they could be, going for this. But unfortunately, and this might be what I talk about next week. This is probably what we're going to talk about on the World War Now. This week is that the fear being that Russia, Lavrov, the foreign ministry, the Kremlin are soft preparing the Russian people for a sort of Minsk III, which if that happens, that will be a black pill. Because at this point, Russia would be wise to just continue leading the Americans on while they continue to advance militarily. And as the discussions on replacing Zelensky wrap up, the Americans support Timoshenko, the Russians seem to want Medvedchuk or somebody else. I do believe that will eventually start to lead to discontent, within the Ukrainian armed forces, and that will allow Russia to advance a lot more. But this is in the Kursk region. Patrick Lancaster just left Suja. He's with the Akhmat battalion in some capacity. But here he is. This is the closest he says that he's gotten to death on the front lines. And he's told me some crazy stories, so that's saying a lot. But this first minute...
Oh, shit!
It's hard to they're about to so, they're getting chased by, I don't know, Iraq.
There's a drone right above us.
So yeah, that was, I'm glad Patrick is okay. I'm glad they had some good shots there in the back of the back of that pickup. Zach saying, is Odessa off the table for good now? Pretty disappointing if so. I wouldn't say it's off the table, but for it to be actually taken militarily, I mean, unfortunately, I don't see Russia taking Kharkov and Odessa militarily without some major escalation by the West that they can use to justify it. So maybe if the Macron plan or these UK plans for peacekeepers in Ukraine goes through, the Russians will be like, you know what, we're taking the whole pie, we're taking the whole banana, and they take Odessa. Right now I'm hearing talks that the Russians want to turn Odessa into some neutral autonomous zone where like it'd be this kind of UN occupied port. That's dumb. I don't know why Russians still think that these international institutions are going to fundamentally support them. But as I've said since the beginning of World War Now, the prophecies will be fulfilled. And even if the current Russian leadership, who are terminally boomer-pilled, the situation on the ground in the West's nonsense and the ethno-religious occupiers of the Western militaries and state departments will force Russia to return to history and become this player and fulfill its destiny, frankly. So I believe that Odessa I think it will come under Russian control, but I don't necessarily think that the current Russian leadership has a plan for that would that they plan on just executing at the end of this attritional trench warfare We know they want to negotiate, and unfortunately, I've said before, I think Putin is willing to settle for the 4 oblasts and some neutral rump state or something like that, which, again, that's pretty much just Minsk 3, and I think that would be unacceptable. I think that would be a big vindication for somebody like Igor Girkin Strelkov and his Angry Patriots party, but he's in prison. So there really isn't a right-wing opposition or somebody that would stand up and capitalize on a potential patriotic disdain for the current leadership if they give up way too much for what they've already lost in Ukraine. But we can keep looking at live UA map here for a second. We can go to Israel-Palestine. Obviously, here we've got reports of launches from Yemen. So far, none of the Ansar Allah missiles have struck down and killed anybody in Israel, but they've, of course, had to perpetually deploy their air defenses, which I don't know if they're showing the Iranians where they are. I don't know exactly what the purpose is. I think they're just doing whatever they can. But here, of course, we have the situation in Lebanon. The Israelis have not fully pulled out. Israeli airstrike targets Kar in the Kakiat al-Jisr area, southern Lebanon. So again, this shows you how many fronts Israel has going right now. They've obviously got what's going on in Gaza. They've got the West Bank. They have all the missile strikes hitting them in Tel Aviv and these areas. And then, of course, this is the Golan Heights and how far they've pushed into Quneitra province and into the Dara government even. I mean, look, they are well into Dara here, well past the Quneitra. They're getting close. Look how close they are to Damascus. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. But think about what St. Philomeno said about Mount Tabor and the Russians coming down, up through here, through Georgia, melting like a candle, fighting the Turks throughout this region. And a lot of the prophecies talk about how at the end of all of this, there will be a greater Armenia, there will be a large Kurdish state, which, again, you got to recognize that when the prophecies are coming from Greeks, you got to just look at what St. Paisios actually said, because a lot of Greek people, and I believe the 1/3 dying, 1/3 converting to Orthodoxy, 1/3 retreating to the Red Apple, I believe that. But Greeks like to be like, yeah, and then what's going to happen is everyone around Turkey is just going to rape them. Like, it's just going to be over, which I think Turkey will get destroyed. I think Turkey's going to face the brunt of this, but you can kind of assume why Greeks would be a bit excited to talk about how Armenians and Kurds and Greeks are just going to eat up Turkey. So I think we have to recognize that the actual words of the saints talk about 1/3 of these Turks, who many of them are Greeks themselves, are going to become Orthodox. And the 1/3 of them perishing, supposedly, that's not good. That is bad, because they're humans made in the image of God as well. But let's get an eye on Syria here. Yeah, a lot more detail from this, but you can see this is where the Turks are, and the Turks do have a lot more territory here in the north than the Israelis in the south. But this shows you who are the two biggest players right now. It's these two, because they are the ones expanding their territory. So I think that is, and look how much control the SDF controls. I mean, this is what would be part of independent Kurdistan, of course. Obviously, Iraq as well is where you go to Erbil. This is the capital of the Kurdish world. The Kurds have sort of autonomy in northern Iraq. What does it say? I discussed a development in Syria on a phone call with Trump, Erdogan. The thing about Erdogan is people lump him in with Trump and Putin and these others as this, strong man kind of retraditionalizing, the neo-Ottoman thing. But ultimately, even Erdogan has maintained their relation with Israel despite all of his kowtowing. They have maintained their shipments of energy, especially through Azerbaijan, to Israel. So that is what's been going on there. Don't forget, if you want to ask a question, leave a super chat. I'm still answering questions. You get priority. I'm asking a few free things here, but I don't want to just read the whole chat. The super chats are greatly appreciated. I want to thank Josh, Rye, and everybody else that has donated this evening. Very helpful. You have contributed to the cause. We got Iran over here, which they lump the Houthi situation in with Iran. They don't have. I'm surprised they don't have a Yemen map. The Yemen map would almost make more sense than what I'm looking at right here. But of course, this shows you that Live UA, this is fundamentally Western backed. They why won't this go away? But they're covering all these protests. They like anytime there's sort of regional disruption on Iran, they cover it. They're trying to get that smut out of here. It's showing boobs all over the place. Give me a break. But then of course it talks about it doesn't have all the Yemen strikes, so they're not just lumping it all in together. But of course, I covered this on a recent World War Now, but Iranian Quds Force experts were killed in U.S. airstrikes on Hodeidah earlier Monday morning. I'm assuming that's true. Obviously, Iran they're allies with the Houthis, but the war that Trump is engaged in Yemen right now is not good, even if it would be hilarious if Jackson Hinkle, happened to get, I don't know, something. I don't know why he always does the go to these Muslim countries and dresses up in the whole costume. I mean, what do we got here? Let's check this goober. I met this guy in Russia. I hype-mogged his butt buddy Haas. It was great. But yeah, man, he's always dressing up in the freaking outfit. I mean, look at this. What are we doing? What is this? He's like Justin Trudeau, just dressing up in whatever costume he wants. But I think that this guy's an asset at the end of the day. I can't see this guy, especially if this guy ever comes back to America after this. It's pretty obvious that he's some sort of asset because he's a whole thing. But yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But at one point we were almost going to debate Hinkle, but he wouldn't even debate. He wouldn't debate Fuentes either. He demanded a 2v2. He needs Haas to back him up. And look, Dimitri and me and Momchulo, we already embarrassed Haas. If you want to listen to the old debate, we made that loser freak out. He was spurging like a retard. So people could check that out. But Haas, I mean, Hinkle would never do it. Hinkle could never handle a one-on-one debate. He needs his Dearborn midget there to back him up. So yeah, the MAGA communism thing is, thankfully, I don't think it is going to be much longer for this world. We have old episodes discussing all of that. Let's read some more of the chat here. I want to thank everybody for joining in. I debated between playing World War III by Kanye West as the song. And I know people don't love Kanye these days after he posted, all that ography, which I don't endorse that, obviously. Don't watch porn. Don't post porn on X. Very bad. But he was making a point. You can post as much porn as you want, but you talk about them boys and they're going to get you. So that was the point that was being made. But the song World War III, I mean, I first listened to it, I was half expecting Kanye to start dropping some prophecies. Like, has he been listening to World War Now? I remember when he first kind of dropped the red pill on the scene, he went on Alex Jones. He was saying we're already in World War III. So look, people think he's a dumb dude. He's clearly crazy. At one point, had a nitrous addiction, so you can't take everything that he said with 100%. But he's saying some stuff, and he believes it's the Third World War as well. And he's also expressed an interest in Orthodox Christianity. So you got to pray for Ye. And I know people are going to call me a retard, but you got to do it. And the song goes crazy. I'm sorry. The song goes so hard. I almost want to play it, but I don't think if he drops I think if he says the gamer word, the stream will just get banned. So I don't want to do that. Got a question from Zach. Great guy. What role does Syria play in Holy Prophecy? I think Syria is for the Middle East stuff, it's going to be one of the main battlefields. I think between the Russians, the Israelis, the Iranians, and the Turks, Syria is going to be kind of the main zone with a huge border with Turkey's eastern regions. That's going to be where again, the Russians could have a disaster at their port in Latakia and be forced to descend down through Turkey, through Syria to secure that. And then, like St. Philomeno said, all the way down to Mount Tabor. And again, I don't know if we'll see... St. Philomenos didn't seem to think that Russians would be besieging Jerusalem like Gog and Magog, like a lot of people seem to think, but perhaps some Iranian force will trudge through Iraq and Syria. The Jordanian regime is going to be a big part of this. Perhaps, again, Palestinian expulsion into Egypt, into Jordan, into these other places could lead to all sorts of crazy things. Perhaps a pro-Iranian regime comes to power in Jordan. Perhaps a Muslim Brotherhood government comes to power in Egypt. And again, maybe the current government in Syria falls again. Maybe a Assadist successor comes into power, maybe someone more overtly pro-Iranian, maybe something akin to Lebanon, where we get this fake coalition government that's meant to represent all the minorities and basically just do nothing, which is what we have right now. So all sorts of things could happen. But no, thank you for the super chat. Look, I can't show everything that's based. We're on YouTube. You got to remember, this isn't just a Substack. Eventually we'll be on Substack, and maybe I'll just go off and say whatever I want, and then YouTube will ban me and I won't even care. But Substack, they should be adding desktop streaming, because look, the only way you can stream right now in Substack is through the phone app. And I'm not going to pull this thing out and like set it up so I can also be Father Peter. I can also be live on there, because I couldn't even show you all the stuff on the screen. They wouldn't even be able to see it. So once I could connect StreamYard to the Substack, we will be golden. But great viewership tonight. Really want to thank everybody. What's Boris saying? We got some ramblings. Russians will take Jerusalem. Israel will attempt to launch the Samson option. Nuke everybody. Russians will use worldwide EMP. No electricity for 3 days anywhere. I don't know where you're getting this, but that would be a big blow to nothing ever happens cells. But I don't know if Russia is going to do that. I think Russia will get into Israel in some capacity. My fear is that Russia will never... I just don't think Russia will return to the czarist. They were the restrainers. The czar was the katakon. He was the restrainer of Antichrist. And what is the main thing that happens who are the main groups that you restrain when you restrain the Antichrist? Well, it's them boys. It's those behind the Zionist entity. And Russia, if it doesn't reject this post-war consensus, if it doesn't reject this, this idol, like it's created an idol out of its defeat of the Germans in World War II. And then, of course, there's the amount of the Russian Jews that went to Israel. They need to move past this and accept that if Russia is to be the civilizational, banner waver of Orthodox Christianity, if they're to be the ecumene, if they're going to have the czar, if they're going to be able to call the ecumenical councils, if they're going to fight against the Antichrist, then they got to get over this whole Israel thing. And people remember, I only was live for 14 minutes on this channel covering the Tucker Carlson Putin interview. But for anybody that watched that was a bit disappointing, in the sense that Putin directly said that he doesn't see spirituality, religion per se, playing out in the geopolitical realm. And that's just, I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, someone's got to send Putin this show and get him to wise up, because I know Metropolitan Neophytos, he knows Medvedev and his wife, and unfortunately Medvedev is like 30th in line for the presidency right now. He's on the National Security Council of Russia, but I know he's aware of all of this stuff. That's why he, I think, posted that map. He talks a lot about Odessa, these other things. He hasn't said a lot recently, so I don't know if he's being sidelined. I've heard he's, got he's a bit on the bottle, as it were, so he is dealing with that. But at one point, Medvedev was the president of Russia, so Metropolitan Neophytos does have a line there. And obviously, Russians love Cyprus. Limassol is a very Russian place. So we hope that can tie into this, obviously. But when Putin said that, I was like, oh, man. Which just shows that ultimately a lot of this stuff with Russia is going to be bound up with his successor. And I don't know if Putin would support a return to monarchy. I think we don't know who Putin's successor is. Obviously, on the stream in the future, I'll probably talk a lot about some of these people, Prince Karl, Grand Duke George, Gabriel Doroshin, these other people. Hopefully, Dmitry will be talking to Gabriel Doroshin in Russian sometime in the near future, doing a Russian language interview. So All sorts of things could happen. We got Travis Smith, Elder Joseph of Atopedi says Russians will use an EMP to shut down the U.S. such Israeli missiles firing on them. That would be interesting. I have read a lot. Elder Joseph of Atopedi is the main one that talks about, the third of the Turks getting blown up and these other things. So very interesting. I love Elder Joseph. Elder Joseph looks a lot like, I love how much Elder Joseph looks like St. Joseph as a cast. It's pretty funny. But, what is it? Conrad, I absolutely agree with your takes on Russia. Thank you. Love to hear that. But the Tsar situation in Russia, obviously there also has to be big national repentance. I think there will have to be a sort of growing consensus and a recognition that what the Russians did to the Tsar was wrong. And more people are realizing that every day. It's becoming a much more popular thing. I went to Russia, talked to some very wonderful monarchists that were there, and those are the cream of the crop. These are some of the intellectual heavyweights of our time, and they're not going to get the recognition. They're not. Look, I like Dugan. I consider him an acquaintance, a friend, even, but he plays both sides all the time. He needs to embrace monarchy. He needs to understand the prophecies, which he does. He understands them, but fundamentally, he's been tapped to sort of play this character of this intellectual in Russia that claim, like, a lot of people in Russia will tell you, Dugan doesn't even necessarily know Putin per se. I don't know all the details about that, but he's not necessarily the intellectual behind. He's not Putin's brain like everybody says. If anything, it might be better if he was Putin's brain. Putin's probably listening to even less based people, frankly, at a certain level. But Dugan, for example, if you saw his recent takes, let me find that. Oh man, did Dugan write a whole article about this? Maybe I'll react to this. Hell yeah. Is Erdogan alone? This must have just dropped today. Great content, everybody. So Erdogan alone by Alexander Dugan. Following the arrest of Istanbul's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, serious interest has erupted and continues to escalate in Turkey. The crisis is deepening, but to properly analyze the situation, several factors must be taken into account. First, the mayor of Istanbul, like the mayor of Ankara, belongs to the liberal opposition of Erdogan. This is the Republican People's Party, CHP, which represents a left liberal, secular, and generally pro-European alternative to Erdogan's own party, the Justice and Development Party. This opposition is, in principle, oriented towards the West and opposed to the Islamic orientation of Erdogan's policies. At the same time, it holds a fairly hostile stance towards Russia. Dugan restacks like every episode of World War now, so he's listening to this stuff. He knows. Because in his tweets, he was talking about how Russia would have better relations with these Kemalists, which I don't think that's true at all. Second, Erdogan himself has recently made several very grave political mistakes. The most significant of these is his support for the seizure of power in Damascus by the militants of al-Jilani. This is a fatal error because in doing so, Erdogan inflicted a serious, possibly irreparable blow to Turkish-Russian and Turkish-Iranian relations. Now neither Russia nor Iran will come to Erdogan's aid. The situation has already turned against him, and the crisis may intensify further. I do not believe that Iran or Russia are in any way involved in the unrest in Turkey. More likely, it is the West trying to overthrow Erdogan. I agree with that as well. Nevertheless, his Syrian mistake is fundamental. Many inside Turkey not only failed to understand it, but also condemned this policy of Erdogan's, which, as we now see, has led to the genocide of Alawites and other ethno-religious minorities, including Christians. In effect, only an extremely short-sighted politician could hand over power in Syria to al-Qaeda, and although Erdogan has generally been considered a far-sighted politician, this mistake, in my view, will haunt him many times over. Another aspect is his economic policy. The devaluation of the lira, rampant inflation, all this is undermining an already shaky Turkish economy. And of course, these failures both in Syria and the economy, along with Erdogan's rapprochement with the European Union, with globalist forces, and his contact with the head of MI6, Richard Moore, are all pushing Erdogan into a trap. There's that classic British-Ottoman connection where, despite seeming like this multipolar bridge between the East, this Islamic power, the Ottomans are fundamentally a vassal of the United Kingdom. Because they're both, now the UK and Turkey are both not in the EU, but they are both in NATO. At this point, without the US, they're the two most powerful states in NATO, pretty much. I don't know, maybe France has surpassed the UK, I don't know. But Richard Moore are all pushing Erdogan into a trap. As a result, the liberal yet Kemalist and thus nationalist opposition inside Turkey has seized the opportunity to capitalize on his failures. Their argument is, we warned you that what happened in Syria would be a Pyrrhic victory. The economy is collapsing and we have a stronger orientation towards the West than Erdogan, under whom Turkey will never be accepted into Europe. That is true. Erdogan himself is going to have a much harder time getting into the EU, whereas these secularists, they'll cave to all the global homo stuff that usually comes with getting into these organizations. And since Turkey has a functioning democracy, Erdogan was unable to prevent the populations of Istanbul and Ankara from voting for opposition leaders in mayoral elections. In the end, Erdogan decided to imprison the mayor of Istanbul. The question of whether it is justified or not is almost irrelevant. In any modern political regime, it is always possible to find grounds to imprison any official in modern politics. There are no innocent people. Turkey is no exception. Therefore, the question is solely one of political expediency. Erdogan decided that things were going badly for him and that he needed to imprison his most active opponent, Ekrem İmamoğlu. Yet İmamoğlu is a Soros-affiliated figure, supported by globalist networks, and Erdogan could have been supported in his move only if he himself had taken a hard stand against that Soros-connected faction. However, as already mentioned, Erdogan had earlier stabbed his allies, Iran and Russia, in the back. Therefore, we cannot support him in the current situation. This is a very bad situation for Erdogan. All his opponents, taking advantage of the accumulated errors, have risen in revolt. A bona fide color revolution, and those conservative, even militarily aligned Kemalists with a Eurasian orientation, whom Erdogan had once accused in the fabricated Ergenekon case, and who in fact had saved him more than once, especially during the 2016 coup attempt, will no longer come to his rescue. So Dugan's basically saying that Erdogan's alienated any of the secular nationalists that that come from him. People talking about Dugan comes from a mystic background. Look, I've asked Dugan in person if he affirms the objective truth of orthodoxy and Palomism, and he said yes. So I understand he's had a past where he interacted with some dubious characters, but he attends the Adinaveri. He's an Orthodox Christian in good standing. I'm not going to say he's an occultist. I do think he worships the third world too much. I think he can be sometimes a bit of he says some perennial sounding things regarding Islam, but I believe he's an Orthodox Christian. In essence, Erdogan is left without friends, having betrayed everyone multiple times. I believe his situation is unenviable. At the same time, we ourselves must be very cautious about the unfolding protests because behind them stand the same organizers as in most color revolutions, including the one currently underway in Serbia. At the same time, the globalists involved in the protests are a minority. The majority are ordinary people genuinely dissatisfied with various political excesses in the leadership. Therefore, there are also objective reasons for what is happening. It seems Erdogan has simply exhausted his margin for error, yet he continues to make mistakes. It is hard to say what could rectify the situation. Perhaps some form of Kemalist national unity government involving moderate Islamists, such as members of Erdogan's own party, could emerge. In this context, the question arises, what is happening with Devlet Bahçeli, the leader of the Turkish Nationalist Movement Party, as Erdogan's chief ally? There are even rumors that he has died, which the authorities are supposedly concealing. I think that is just conspiracy talk, but he truly has aged and weakened. Erdogan can no longer rely on him or his grey wolves, once powerful and dangerous Turkish radical nationalists. So once again, I repeat, Erdogan and his regime's future looks grim. Still, of course, we would prefer to have a sovereign Turkey with an independent foreign policy as our neighbor, preferably friendly, though we are prepared even if it becomes hostile. Russia is ready for any turn of events. That's a pretty bold statement there at the end. It seems, I think since releasing his previous tweets, Dugan has become more prophecy-pilled. But talking here about Devlet Bahçeli and the Grey Wolves, we have seen both hardcore Islamist groups mobilizing against these kinds of people. Because some of the secular protesters apparently left trash near the Hagia Sophia, which is now a mosque. And the situation with that whole thing, and they were like, oh, you're anti-Islam. So the main people that are against this are these hardcore Islamists, but I don't think the hardcore Islamists are super popular right now in Turkey, especially, I mean, in Turkey, the pro-migration perspective is from the quote-unquote right-wing Erdogan group. They support all these Islamists from Syria coming into Turkey because they ostensibly side with them. But this is a good article. I'm finna restack this. I may even restack with note. good analysis of the Turkey situation. But yeah, it doesn't look like Dimitri was able to join us this evening, but hopefully in the future he'll be able to hop on a call or something. But hope everybody's able to join the Discord as well. I hope that in the future there can be some Discord discussions about this. And I want people to clip this for anybody that wants to know how they can help World War Now. The best thing you can do is clip the show. Obviously, get behind the paywall, support us, leave super chats on these streams. That keeps the lights on here at the proverbial World War Now bunker, as I like to say. But if you want to really help us out, if you want to spread the message, if you want to produce propaganda, take your favorite clips from these streams, from our episodes, whether it's on YouTube or Substack, record your favorite segment. It'd be awesome if people could add even graphics and, things going on that kind of display what we're saying. We have a World War Now Clips X account that I have access to. So if you make those, I will happily post those on there and give you credit if you make the post. There's even on the Discord, I believe, let me check. There is a World War Now clips and edits chat. So if anybody wants to make something like that, take a clip of me on the stream, clip your favorite 2 minutes of Dimitri and I going off on an episode, post those there. It would really, really help us out. We got to spread the propaganda, YouTube shorts, because most people, they don't have the attention span to tune into a 2-hour stream, tune into an hour and a half episode of World War Now. Most people, their attention span is cooked. Most people are, I hate to say it, kind of retarded, but we got to get the message to people that are kind of retarded as well. So anyone that, spends a little too much time on the internet and want to know how you could help, that is how you can do it. We really need clippers. We need to help, get some fan-made content. But yeah, I think we're wrapping up here. I'll probably make it to 2 hours, keep yapping here a little bit, but this has been a really great stream. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been lovely. I've had a wonderful time. And hopefully in the future we can have guests. Maybe I'll even take calls. I'll take, we can go in the Discord or something, and we can give people the link here to StreamYard, or even just talk to people on Discord. And we can take, we can get to callers and whatnot. And, maybe if you want, you can even invite the haters. People can come in, get in a yelling match. I can embarrass people and call them stupid and mog them with my high verbal IQ, which I'm sure you've all been enjoying this evening. But I jest, I'm a dummy. But yeah, hopefully we could have guests on this stream as well. I think live stream guests, it's almost a bit of a different dynamic than having the guests on the recording. So it'd be a fun time to have some people on here. And I love engaging with you guys in the chat. This has been a good time. I want to thank everybody for 4 a.m. in Serbia. Thank you for tuning in, sir. You are a true hero. But yeah, thank you all for joining. It's been quite the show. I don't think I missed any super chats. If anyone wants to get in any final questions, I'll hang out for another minute or two to answer any questions if people want to give me any more shekels. But this has been lovely. If you tuned in on X, thank you as well. We got $5 from Ghost. I would love to see Church of the Eternal Logos on here as a guest. Well, we have had David Patrick Harry on before. Check out our Ether Hour episode. That's what I'm going to do. I said I was going to do this, and I keep meaning to make a post in the Substack chat for this. Shoot. But I haven't done it yet. I want to remind, because there's a lot of new paid subs, people that come to the show, and I know it's not, Substack search doesn't always work super well, but we have to, we got to make sure people are listening to the Ether Hours. And I know people ask us for episodes and whatnot, their favorite, to make things, and there's a good chance we've already made some of those episodes. So if you're still here, there's a good question about this. Hey, Conrad, when's the next episode of Uncanonized Saints? There hasn't been one in a while. Well, there actually has, not that long ago. Episode 68, The Life of Elder Ephraim of Philothea, Father Peter Hears, which is an episode about an uncanonized saint, Elder Ephraim. Check that one out. It's a really good episode. But again, you got to just click the Ether Hour tab on the Substack and just scroll down. There are hours and hours of content. Look at some of this stuff. I didn't tag some of the first episodes. So That's my bad. You got to just scroll down on the regular section. But look, this episode, if you haven't watched this episode, what are you doing, man? Ether Hour, episode 12, Russia and Agartha, land of Chud. We discussed the legendary lands of Russia's far east and north, the edge of the flat earth, the land of Chud, Putin's gnome roots, old believer folklore, and more. I mean, this is one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. We talk about some crazy Russian lore. We talk about all sorts of great stuff. We talk about Kitej, Belovodia, these sorts of things. So you don't want to miss out on that. Check that episode out. I have some great interviews with GM Davis about his book, Antichrist. Wonderful interview. Don't miss it. Yeah, there's just so much great stuff. We have great first interview with Isaac Swalem before he started coming on Ether Hour. Someone's asked me, Travis Smith, what's your baptismal name? My baptismal name is Conrad. Saint Conrad of Constance is my patron saint. He's a Western saint. So please ask for his intercessions and pray for me. Everybody, please keep me in your prayers. Boy, do I need it, worthless sinner that I am. So I hope everybody can keep me in your prayers so I can. It's a great privilege to yap to you and be able to do this as my job. I know that a lot of people would like to do this. I know that God has given me this opportunity, so I appreciate it. Forgot about this, episode 42. We did a whole episode about the life of Lukashenko. We have Rachel Wilson on to talk about the occult roots of feminism. Then here, of course, are this was episode 1 about St. John Vatatzis with Gregory. We've got all the Q&A episodes, obviously. We also have the episodes where we talk about Dimitri's ritual regicide articles. So you don't want to miss this stuff. I talk episode 34. That's where I talk about the Texas Monthly hit piece that attacked me, Michael Sisko, Father John Whiteford, Buck Johnson. Great moment, proud moment. A lot of episodes with Anthony of Westgate. I think at least 3 Ether Hour episodes. We're going to be talking to him, hopefully in the near future as well. Another one of those uncanonized saints episode. We have a whole episode about whether or not Tsar Paul I was a Freemason or if he was what he actually is, which is an Orthodox saint. We have an interview with Shane Swenson, iconographer, very talented iconographer. There's someone knocking on my door. We talk about Thanksgiving from an Orthodox perspective. Talk about Konstantin Pobedonostsev. I mean, this is stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. This episode 20, where we discuss the truth behind the pogroms in the Russian Empire. We discuss how the Soviet Union collaborated with the IDF to torture Russian Orthodox priests in Israel and trying to seize the property after the Nakba during the beginning of the Zionist project. So much stuff to look at. Check out all these old episodes if you are subscribed behind the paywall. Be sure to take advantage and watch all these old hours and hours of episodes. And if you aren't behind the paywall, get behind it. You don't just get the latest episodes with Jim Jatras, Patrick Lancaster, Father Peter Hears, obviously, which are must-watches, but you get the whole backlog. So be sure to check all of that out. People are trying to ask more questions. Maybe I'll deal with these next time. People asking about Central Asian migrants in Russia. People talking about all these sorts of things. No need to apologize for missing any episodes, but the Cameron McGregor episode, if you haven't watched that one, wonderful stuff. So it's been 2 hours. I think this has been quite the wonderful stream. Thank you all those of you that sent in questions. Thank you those of you that participated in the live chat. Thank you all of you that shared. I think I'm going to try to just upload the recording of this to Substack. I don't know, maybe just a link to the YouTube. I don't know what's best. Hopefully in the future on Substack, the stream will just be there. And when it's over, it'll be saved. But thank you all so much. God bless you. I think I'll probably play the outro music here. But worldwarnow.co, that's where you can go to help us out. I'm actually going to send that in the chat. If you want to get behind the paywall, this is where you can help us out. This is how you keep the show running. This is all of our content. Also, not only is the Ether Hour episodes there, but if you subscribe on the Substack, you get access to all of the regular, fully free World War Now episodes a day early. So they get posted on YouTube and X on Mondays. They get posted to Substack on Sundays. Or rather, they get scheduled on Saturday to get released on Sundays. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for everybody for the support. worldwarnow.co. Be sure to follow me on X at GnomeRad. I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers, getting closer. So follow me here at GnomeRad. Follow World War Now at _. Follow me first, though, right now. That's the priority. But follow me there. Follow us on Telegram, World War Now Telly. You can follow Dimitri at WWN Host. But, of course, the main way you can support us, of course, is on the World War Now Substack right here where you're greeted by our beautiful thumbnails. So thank you all so much for listening. And God bless. I will see you on the next one. This has been a joy. So good night.